Yeah.
There we are. Lateef the Ninja Badat.
Oh, you're live.
We're live, and you've upgraded your description.
I have a different one for different days. This is my Friday one.
Yeah, so you're gonna upgrade next time I interview you. You're gonna be you've upgraded to samurai.
Samurai, yeah, or Ronin.
Brilliant. Right, okay. Well, thanks, Lateef, for joining me today on Friday Live. It's me, Phil Crowshaw, and it's this fella, a good friend. I'd like to say a good friend of mine, actually, now, Lateef. We've known each other quite a few years and keep seeing each other passing through, or we used to see each other passing through those events. Remember those events? Do you remember back in the day? Events.
I've started to get back to them now. So, I'm kind of really enjoying my time, sucking every minute out of them when it's a face-to-face. Obviously, things have changed. But, yeah, I do remember them. But they were heaving, weren't they, when we used to get to them?
Yeah, do you know, it's really strange how you... we went to Blackpool about a week ago. Myself and my wife went to Blackpool and went into a place called Bispam Kitchen in Blackpool, in Bispam. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember us going in there with all the family, and it was heaving, and you were sat like that far from everybody. And me and my wife went in there the other day because we fancied a walk up the prom at Blackpool for a bit of fresh air. And there was hardly anybody in it. And we just kept saying to each other, can't imagine being in here when it's absolutely rammed.
Yeah, yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. Where was I? I can't remember where I was. I was somewhere yesterday. I was in like a cafe cum restaurant cum whatever type thing in Manchester. And it's the first time I've been back to that place with a client stroke friend. And I'm looking around, I thought to myself, it's not the same. I said to my mate, is it, because he's been, you see, because obviously he lives there. I used to meet him there. Anyway, he said, no, COVID has had an impact on the business, and some people are still a bit reluctant to come in. I didn't see anybody wearing face mask inside. But there were a few people on the, as they were coming in, maybe they were taking the odd face mask off as they were getting ready. So maybe wherever they're walking. But this was in the heart of Rusholme. But outside this venue, when I was looking through the windows, it was just, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. It was just like Las Vegas or something. So that was good to see from that side, inside, like I said, this particular place, maybe I've gone to the wrong place, Phil, maybe next door was packed. So, but yeah, he was saying it has taken a bit of a hit, but it was lots of people, lots of cars. I reckon people were still getting out, going into some little places, getting some stuff, and then going back home. Maybe choosing a bit more carefully of how many family members, which place to go. Do we want to go there just for a little while or longer? I think there's still a bit of that tentativeness, if that's a word.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Right, okay, well, too, I'll do the introduction, and then we'll get onto the formalities.
Yeah, formalities.
So here we are. It's official. We're now live. We were live, and now we're live. And we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So we're going multi-streaming. Oh, honestly, is there no end to this talent?
Obviously not.
Obviously not. Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe 6-7 million worldwide viewing this today, Lateef, and then I woke up, right? So Lateef Badat, the ninja, obviously, now as we will now call you from now on. So tell us who you are, mate, and what you do.
All good. Thank you. I've got to give a big shout out to you for having me on again. I must have done something good last time.
You did. You do.
Appreciate that. But it's like you said at the beginning, it's always nice catching up with yourself, and I'm sure face to face isn't going to be too long away. So my name is Lateef Badat, and I am a business and confidence coach. And what I do is I specialize in helping transform mindsets of business owners and their teams in order to be more effective and more productive, but more so to do with health, well-being, looking after your staff, making sure people are happy when they're in the workplace and out the workplace as well. So which then leads to basically people not going off on sick, not having demotivated staff, people not going off on stress, anxiety, those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that you've been doing this for some years because, as I said at the start, you and I have met each other on our travels around various events and what have you. But I don't think either of us could have ever foresaw what was coming, and especially what was coming and the impact it would actually really have. We thought we had problems with mental health and stress before. What's been your observations over the last 18 months? Has it been the worry and stress of certainly people's owning and running small businesses has gone through the roof? Is it that some people have had a bit of time to reflect and to relax a little bit and maybe not on the hamster wheel, getting up at 5 a.m. and coming home at 10 p.m. in the same way? What's been your actual experience, Lateef?
It's changed everything. I think if somebody needed, I'm talking generally now, a big wake-up call, I think that's probably done it in a number of different ways. It's very, very unfortunate to see people struggle in business. Some people's businesses have folded, and obviously that's had an impact on people themselves. Relationships have broken down. I know lots of solicitors that got really, really busy early part of lockdown with people splitting up. Then that impacted on estate agents for people selling houses, then those individual parties then buying houses and all those sorts of things. So I think if I was to split it up into groups, we've had people that for one reason or another, the sector they're in, especially hospitality, has taken a massive hammering, have decided to fold the business, or they've had no choice, so they've tried to do the furlough thing. They've tried, maybe they've let a few staff go. But unfortunately, the way it's happened is they just weren't able to continue. Now, at the time, it's been really painful for them. But over the coming months, some have said no regrets. It's probably the best thing that happened in hindsight. But it's one of them, isn't it? And other people are obviously still saying, no, if I could turn back the clock, I still want to be running my business. It's just unfortunate. It wasn't down to them. Nobody could have predicted. It's not the type of thing you would have stuck in your business plan or a strategy and all those sorts of things. They tried with the best will in the world to foresee various scenarios, but not this. Who would have done? That's one category of people. The other category of people that thrived, so creative, digital, media type, tech businesses have really, really thrived. And social media marketers, social media trainers, because their target market has been businesses who they've been able to say, listen, you need to be found online, you need to stay visible, you need to do X, Y, and Z. So again, that whole thing has happened. And for some people, whether it's the people who are doing the training, for example, or the coaching online, to be able to more easily say to somebody that, Phil, we need to do this online, this training. Whereas previously, if I quoted you for a half day, I don't know, social media training course or something, you'd expect me to come down to your offices, see the staff, and that's what's considered the other extra value. Where because of the pandemic, again, those conversations didn't really need to take place. It was a case of, we need your services, we need your expertise, we're quite happy to invest, and we're going to do it on Teams, Zooms, or whatever else, and that's perfectly fine. If anything, it's been a bit of a reassurance for people saying, actually, we'd rather you didn't come in. There has been other businesses that have been operating more or less without too much of a problem, so their staff have been going in. Obviously, they put screens up. So if you can imagine the whole thing about keeping safe, that's had to be introduced. And in the supply chain of all that is then companies who are thriving to produce it all, deliver it all, manufacturing it, everything like that. And then there's another group, which is the group I've been predominantly working with, is people who have found themselves in one situation or another, business owners or the staff that have had a bit of a epiphany, if you want to call that, to say, do you know what, I don't need to wake up at, as you said, 5 o'clock in the morning. What I'm better off doing is I can either sleep in, I can get some exercise in, I can do other things. And that meeting I had scheduled in with Phil at 7 a.m, well, I don't need to travel to Carlisle anymore. I'll just do it on here. So that's been one of the biggest things, that flexibility. And then on the flip side to that has been this Zoomatitis or whatever, too much Zoom, working from home, feeling isolated. So it swings and roundabouts. So if I give myself an example, me, it was all 100% face-to-face before lockdown. People had told me about Zoom beforehand. But because I really, really enjoyed going out, traveling, then going to the client site, etc., it never just came into my head. I just thought, I'm just covering the Northwest. As long as I get back home at a reasonable time to see the kids, I'm fine. I don't really want to do the staying in hotel rooms. And then this happened. And then maybe, I don't know, I didn't think about it for too long, but in maybe a few minutes I was thinking, oh, I wonder what somebody's going to say when I say, listen, this is how we're going to do it. This is your investment. But, oh, by the way, you don't really get me, touchy-feely type stuff. You're going to get me, but it's going to be through a screen. But I thought to myself, right, what I'm going to do is, whoever came on first and said, right, we want to work together, I said, yeah, and I said, it's going to be online. I just told them. So there's a little bit of that confidence for me to build up because I've not been there yet. And then the first client that did that early part of lockdown, they went, yeah, that's perfect, fine, Lateef, no worries. I thought, great. So there's a whole culture that shifted. And then there was a comment today on somebody's LinkedIn that was saying the same thing. For them, they're a consultant, by the way, they were having the confidence knowing that when they delivered solutions online, they were going to be the same as they were when they were delivering face-to-face. And again, I don't think it spent long, many months and weeks deliberating about it, but it was that initial thing that if I'm going to charge you a consultancy rate for the day, Phil, back in my head, I'm thinking, well, it's not, I'm not, I'm not there. I haven't got a smart screen or a flip chart, or I'm not at your premises. So will it work the same? And this person has made it work, and various other people have done it as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's a really good synopsis, actually, to be honest. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And everybody's pretty uncertain still, I think. I know you're obviously involved in a lot of networking yourself and companies that do networking and what have you. What have you seen or heard to date in terms of people's confidence and enthusiasm, I guess is the word, coming back into networking in a real room versus still remaining, jumping on the computer, sitting on Zoom, chatting to people and then cracking on with their day? Has there been any signs as to which one of those is it coming back or is it slow?
It's coming back. It's coming back for sure. I've been out already in the last few weeks, quite a few places, and I'll be ramping it up a little bit more. So that's really good. I think what's happened is we found ourselves where we found ourselves. Everybody kind of accepted if you're a beginning or partway through your membership, no matter who you were kind of linked to as a networking organization, that we're going to have to go online. And then depending on the organization, how they've dealt with, if the people needed training, if people needed reassuring, So I think first couple of weeks, the Zooms were all packed out proper. You know what I mean? When you get the screens and you click and it's like 5 screens worth of people. So it was heaving. And I think maybe because the people were also doing one-to-ones related to what they do also on there, something needed to give. Because, you've got your social stuff as well, family, friends, acquaintances. So there's a lot of time looking at this thing, really. So what's probably taken a hit is, right, hypothetically, I've got a group on Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, or whatever. I'll see how I am. You're working from home and you're thinking to yourself, do you know what? Weather's amazing. I ain't going to do it. Yes, I've invested, but it's that kind of thing. Whereas if it was a face-to-face thing, you'd think, yeah, I'm going to get up, get ready. It's the networking. It's once a week, twice a week, whatever. Sorry, not twice a week, twice a month, whatever it might be. So that was initial, and then people started to maybe realize, a small pocket of people. Some people, you just lost them. You know, you didn't see them for ages. It's like, yeah, it's not for me. I'm not renewing, or it's not for me. I don't mind about the money, whatever. And they've cracked on with other things. Other people have tried a few little times to get back into it. It's not, and maybe reduced it. Other people have just made a commitment and said, do you know what? I'm just going to wait till you guys go face to face. So I'm kind of not giving an example about one organisation, several. What's happened since? I think during that time, several different organisations have tried pilots, and they've liaised with a venue based on the government guidelines, and they've run a little pilots to see how they went. But I think that's when we had the second lockdown. So no sooner were you getting a little bit forward, thinking, right, come on, we're all excited, we're back on it again, Phil. And then second lockdown happened. It was all like, and that is all down to this kind of stuff that I help people with, the mindset. How do you remotivate yourself? And it was quite tricky because you had government guidelines, which either way can be, I don't know, they can be a little bit ambiguous at times. Then you're liaising with a venue. Then you've got the organisation itself, and then you've got the members. So there's quite a lot to mix in there. More recently, people have welcomed it, the ones I know of, with open arms, and it's just been a bit of diary management in order to get to those places. You've seen things on people's timelines, mainly LinkedIn, about how happy they are to meet Phil again, and the other one is like, if they've never met you, to go, oh, I didn't know, you know, Phil was 6'6", or somebody was whatever. So there's all these things as we all grow together at these things, that to see somebody, you know, I've had so many intimate conversations with people that you've seen them from a mile away, and you think, oh wow, I didn't think he was that tall or whatever. But the minute you kind of get into a kind of bit of a safe distance, it's just like your best mate over 20 years. Because of what you built up online. It's not been the same, but it is coming back.
Yeah, I think, again, brilliant synopsis. I have to smile when you said that, because I'm sure you remember, because we've met. I'm like short ass.
I know, so I didn't want to say.
Yeah, no, you must stay. Listen, come on, you know. Yeah. I'm sure you've called me baldy before now. No, maybe not, but I wouldn't be bothered anyway. So, my ego can handle it. But it's funny because, and this is really funny, I just find it really amusing. I'd done a load of coaching with a guy online. I've been recommended to him, and I'd done about 5 sessions with him online. And then it was in Salford in Manchester. And then he said, will you come in and see me now? I'd really like to meet you in person. And so I said, yeah, okay. So I went up to him, and he said, God, you're a lot shorter than I thought you were.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing, you see.
And then he looked horrified, as if to say, God, did I say that out loud? And of course, me being me, I just burst out laughing. I said, to be honest, you're quite a bit taller than I expected as well. Yeah. But you are right. Interestingly, I'm doing a radio station, new radio station at the moment, called the Journey Radio Experience, which is great fun. And I'd set up an interview to do with a guy for the radio show. And he said to me, and I know him, and he said to me, do you fancy meeting up for a coffee and we'll do the actual recording outside? So I said, well, yeah, I've got the recording kit and everything. We can check the weather forecast. So it was yesterday, actually. I was trying to think when it was. It was yesterday. And or was it Wednesday? Oh, well, it doesn't matter anyway. No, it was Wednesday, I think. So anyway, went down to Media City, because that's where we said we would do it, because we wanted the media vibe going on around us. Went down to Media City, got all the kit out and everything, did it, had a chat with him, had a couple of lattes with him, and it really was really enjoyable to do. The funny thing was, though, that when I got back, I did a bit of an analysis in my head, and I thought, if I'd done that with him online, it'd take me probably an hour. And I was out 3 hours. It's kind of what you're saying there. So I'd enjoyed it, but if I looked at it from terms of efficient use of time, and then I got stuck in a bit of traffic coming back as well, which is another reminder of reality, isn't it? So, and I guess it as well. I mean, I know you're a really, what I would maybe call a sociable guy. But then you're younger than me. As I've got older, I've become probably a bit less sociable. And then, of course, as you know, because I'm doing this online and Zoom, and I've been doing it for years, because I use it as a recording platform years ago. And as I've joked to people many times, it's like people used to think when I said Zoom, I was talking about an ice lolly. And then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? And so I was kind of used to it, and I enjoyed the efficiency of it. But I am looking forward to doing more of getting out there. But I think I like the idea now of what strikes me. I'm interested to get your view on this. Is I think there was possibly a time a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, where if you'd suggested an online meeting on a platform, it would have looked like you were being a bit lazy, or you were maybe not as committed to it, or you couldn't be asked, or whatever it might be. And now, arguably, it's the norm. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that niggled me a little bit. Like I said, that brief moment that I had, it was like, will people accept it? You know, will they feel this or that? But I thought, rather than start getting into all that, what I did is right, the next time I have an inquiry that I chat to somebody, I run through the bits and bats, and then I'll just tell them how it is. And because they had the whole culture, you know, the whole world changed, didn't it? It was just a lot easier because they didn't need to think about it. They just went bang, you know, that's perfectly fine. So it's kind of made it easier for those scenarios. And same with our friend, the consultant, it made it easier for them. Now, say I had a new client that came on board, say Tuesday this week, and I basically said to him, they're in London. So what I've said to him is, I'm going to do it online. And I just said it to him. I didn't give him an option. I'll say, right, okay, well, what I might do is 1 month, I do it online, and because I don't really want to travel to London. I'm going. I just come back from a holiday from London. So what I'm saying is people will automatically then start to think that, bang, that's fine, no worries, unless there's some burning desire. Now, if it was training, and maybe I'm working with this person's team members and we're doing it for quite a long time, then maybe some negotiation needs to take place. All right, I'll give you a classic example. There's 2 workshops that I've not done online during lockdown because it won't work in terms of how I run them. One is network like a ninja, you know, effective networking skills, and the other one is presentation skills. Now, I could convince you of the value and everything online, and it kind of would work enough to warrant the value you would get and return on investment. But I personally still feel that it would be better face to face, and I don't want then for my reputation or for me to feel that I've not given you the best I can give you. So for that, I've just put them in hold. And people have asked me that, have you not done them online? Would you do them online? I said, no, it don't really work properly online. I've just kind of dismissed it rather than get into the whole conversation, because there's lots of, the other thing with that is, which is quite important, the networking one, you've got to come into close contact with people. So, you know, the olden days, we go through that as well, as in how you'd approach somebody if they're working in, like, they stood like this in groups of 3 or whatever, and the handshake. Now, at the moment, that will be replaced by whether you would work out, shall I walk over to Phil and see how the land lies, see what the vibe is like, and then extend a fist bump or elbow or not do anything. Now, in the last 2 weeks, I've been particularly observing people and that whole body language thing of whether it's with me or whether it's just 2 other people or 3 other people. I've just been kind of sipping my tea or whatever and having a look. And there's been people that have kind of come walking fairly, I won't say briskly, but, you know, a little bit of a speed because they're excited and they've just had this unconscious thing to think, I think that's 2 meters or roughly, sort of stopped, and nobody's decided after them 2 that we're going to go for the handshake. Then I went to see a client the other day face to face for the first time, because we're back on that, and this person just stuck their hand out. Cheers for that, Lateef. And I thought, well, I just went for the handshake and then just doused myself in hand sanitizer.
I can just imagine you like going for the handshake and getting a portable shower out. Go, just bear with me a minute.
Get that Swarfiga out. Bear with me a minute.
I'm sure you're not germ ridden, but just bear with me a minute.
So, but that was just something I thought, I was a bit surprised by it, because when we met last time, I don't know, a couple of weeks had passed. So maybe in that couple of weeks they chilled out or whatever, and they felt it was they were a bit hyped up with what the session had for them and the team and everything. So they're a bit excited basically, and in that excitement they thrust their hand out. So I just grabbed it and shook the hand. Whereas the person I was working with on behalf of the team, we just did a fist bump. so on and so forth. So that's quite interesting. Like you say, the question I would ask you there with regards to the Media City thing is, yes, 3 hours, traffic, okay, but the quality of it all. So, you know, when people in digital talk about user experience in that fashion, what would be the user experience for you, as in Phil, and for that person, but also it was filmed. So the people viewing it, because when people view this, they're going to have this little border. There's a logo there. There's a time thing there. Oh, no, if me and you did this on Salford Quays, if me and you did this at Preston Docks or something, there's maybe the odd person walking past. Would that be more interesting? And so on and so forth.
Really great point and really great question. And it's something I've been playing around with in my head, actually, because apart from anything else, obviously things have taken off a lot in my world in terms of the digital media content side of things, which is where I just love doing it. I've been thinking about, I want to get, because just before lockdown and everything, I was planning on going out to a lot more events, but apart from meeting people, but also as a content development strategy. So, literally walking into places, seeing somebody like yourself or Richard Frew or whoever it might be, loads of people, and just saying, "Oh, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm just doing a show just doing a recording for the radio show. Do you fancy being on it? Yeah, go on then, Phil. Whack the recorder on or whack the camera on if it's more a video podcast kind of thing, and just crack on." So I was planning on doing that anyway, but it's true what you said. The overall experience was better. It was obviously audio only in this case because it's a radio show, but, and I even mentioned it when I did the intro when I started it, I talked about ambient sound. And I said to Tom, who I was interviewing, and we discussed it about, we're here in Media City, it's you'd probably be able to hear all the noise behind us, some kids playing on the kayaks on the canal bit there, on the basin there. There's a crane going up and down somewhere over here. And it's true, there was another dimension of ambient sound. And funnily enough, I said to Tom, actually, I really like this. I'm going to do a lot more of this now coming into the autumn time. Obviously, assuming it's not peeing down with rain. And I want to do a lot more of this. And I will then, as we were saying there, I will go into events and go to events. So I might even see you out at those. But I'll go out there with a view to finding people who I can talk to, interview, discuss content with. And you're right that, that kind of, if you're in a physical location, you've got that background of noise of people chatting. Obviously, you've got to make sure you get your audio set up right, so it's not taking over completely, as you well know. So you're right. It was more enjoyable. It was more fun. It was probably more interesting. So it was that whole, almost like, in a way, I suppose it was effective and efficient fighting against each other in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, that particular client, who's probably more of a friend now, is a client. Twice a month, I would go over to to Manchester to see them, and they're based on Media City. And I used to look forward to it like it's a bit of a jolly. So get down to there, park up, do the session, and after the session, we'd go on rush home. Mainly because I wanted to miss the traffic as well, but basically I enjoy the company, have a bite to eat, and all the rest of it. And that's like twice a month at least. So all of that, if I looked at it in terms of, hours, productiveness, and it's how it makes me feel. It makes me feel amazing knowing that I've done a really, really good job for a client for that particular session in terms of the overall goal and et cetera, but mainly what else? How do I feel? And I've left there like 8 o'clock sometimes. Traffic's gone and everything, but by the time I've got home, I feel, amazing day. I've had other things on during the day in the morning, but that kind of encapsulated the whole thing. And I thought, I can't wait to get back again. Maybe I like my food too much, Phil. But
quite possible. Mind you, if it's curry you're talking about, you can't beat a good curry. So there you go.
But it's all of them things, whether it's there, whether it's local. Then you've got the whole aspect about supporting the local business, which people have been trying to do right the way through lockdown. But to see people actually then go to their local places on the high street or whatever, sitting on the outside, making a commitment and seeing other people. You'll see them from a distance, people pumping the horn, you know, because we're here, aren't we? You know, nobody can see me from outside and all those. So I think ultimately the question you're on about the networking, you've got your networking and you've got socializing, which can be an informal part of meeting people, and same thing, continuing building those relationships and enjoying yourself, which good networking should be about anyway.
Yeah, I do agree. I think probably from my point of view, I love the fact now that there are choices and options to be made that are logical and make sense and won't mean that you're judged. And I can be, you know, one of the things I always say about myself, I'm pretty self-aware in terms of good stuff and bad stuff. I'd like to think I'm quite self-aware. And as you probably know, I love variety. You know, I deliberately, I do all sorts of different things in the business growth, business support arena because I absolutely love variety, and that's what fulfills me. That's why I'm doing radio now, because it's something different, and it challenges you and takes you down a different rabbit hole, you know. So I like the fact it's giving you more variety and more options, and on that basis, I think mood has a lot to do with it as well for me, probably. I'm not a moody guy. Usually pretty much what you see is what you get. I think you would agree with that. But sometimes I just feel like I can't be asked going out. And it might be it's raining hard, and it might because I'm old. I don't know, maybe a bit of both. And other times I kind of think, oh yeah, it'd be great, go down Media City, you know, go down to the event, to the business event, go armed with the kit, see if I can get some decent content and meet some people. So it's lovely to have the choices and the options that you perhaps didn't have before.
So that would indicate to me that some of that, not just for you personally, but some of that might be location, it might be environment. So for example, if you had to go to one place and it was chucking it down, you might think it's even more drearier, the idea now to go there. But if you went somewhere else, you might think it's still chucking it down, but they've got this, which is just around the corner from that, and all the rest of it. So sometimes environment can have a big impact.
That's a great observation, Lateef.
Mindset, mood, and all the rest of it.
Love that. I never thought of that, but now you've said it now, you're absolutely right. There are certain places I would go if it was raining. There's others that I probably wouldn't. I'd rather not. You know, I always pick something up. You say, why do I interview you? Why do I chat to you? There's one reason. I always have takeaways whenever I talk to you. Not in the curry sense.
Not in the curry sense. We've got to have a theme running with food, aren't we? But so then, what you would do as a business owner with that is negotiate where you meet. You know, you could do it that way around. And then depending on who your clients are and who you're interviewing and all the rest of it, you might end up going with them for a drink, a bite to eat, possibly even the cinema or whatever, do something. So you might say, I tell you what, I know it's 15 miles for you this way, but it's also 15 miles for me. But if we meet here, we can do X, Y, and Z. It's got this, it's got that. And then we can do that. That's if they fancy it. But to me, that's what that's about. You know, when I was telling you about fulfillment of it all. So yes, many hours have been spent, which if you start getting into the deeper stuff of it is, well, how have I planned my diary and structured it in the first place? What are my goals? What's the outcomes? What's my big why? And all that kind of stuff will come into it beforehand, which allows me the luxury, I suppose, to be able to travel somewhere and know that the return journey is going to be this much, it's going to be so much mileage, but none of that comes into it because it's, again, how do you feel at the end of it?
Love it. Have you found, I always sometimes think, and I'm generalizing massively, and please challenge you on me on it, and I'm sure you will. But I often do think that there are certain people who are what I would call driven, aspirational, and are just naturally curious. You know, they're what I call the sorts of people with entrepreneurial tendencies. They're not necessarily entrepreneurs in the direct sense, because they can be employees too. But they're naturally curious. They're naturally driven. They're looking for something a bit different. They're looking for something that's a new product or a new service they can launch. Have you found at all that some of these types of people, have they utilized this opportunity of the last 18 months or so to reflect and use the time to be able to maybe develop and plan for new opportunities as we come out the other end?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer would be yes, and those sorts of people will be leading from the front in terms of innovation and all the rest of it, whether it's their business or deciding that actually there's an opportunity here. I don't know much about that sector, but there's definitely an opportunity. Let's investigate it. Let's do some due diligence, etc., and make things happen. So either that's going to be, in the inverted commas, the entrepreneurs, or you've got people working within your organization. So imagine I'm working for you. You might turn around as the entrepreneur, as the leader or whatever, and say, let's see if we've got this opportunity, and me as your employee use my skills as the entrepreneur, right, to basically harness the same set of skills an entrepreneur would use. It's just the only difference is I'm on a salary, but I would have the same vigor, same drive to make whatever it is, whether it's a product that's going to help, whoever, or whether it's a service based on where we find ourselves. There's all these adages sometimes where an entrepreneur is somebody who can jump off a cliff without a parachute or something, but work out how to open the parachute. I can't remember exactly, but it's something like that. But not every person's got that level of skill. Some people then argue, are you born with it? Is it nurtured and all those sorts of things? But overall, I would say yes, people have capitalized. And then other people, what I would say is one word is resilience. So for other people who maybe don't express that to that degree, as we're talking, it's about how they employ that resilience when challenges happen and all the rest of it, and how they then, as a leader, I've been writing about this kind of stuff mainly on LinkedIn, but if you're not feeling it one day, how does that then express itself with the rest of the team? If you've got a team meeting, in your direction for the rest of the company, in your communication, whether it's written, face-to-face, when I say face-to-face, online or whatever, during the pandemic. So are you able to leave your team feeling better than you found them on that particular morning or afternoon, or have they caught up on your negative vibes and then they start panicking and worrying?
Yeah. No, that's right. And it is about resilience, isn't it? And I also think that you've got to learn quickly as well. I always say fail fast. And you've got to learn quickly. In 2009, I got a good kicking, if you like, from the financial collapse. Not to the point of terrible bankruptcy or anything like that. Nothing as horrible as that, as some people obviously experienced at the time. But I lost about 3. I was living and working down south then, and I lost about 3 clients in the space of the same number of days.
Wow.
And as a result, it made me think, I don't want to go through that again. So as a result, I started to look at the business differently, and I started to squirrel away reserves for a rainy day. Which I hadn't done before, because if you remember the crash of 2009, it came from nowhere, a bit like the pandemic did in a way. So, and I think it's about learning. So this time when the pandemic came, I had reserves, but it was only through the pain of the cock-ups I made in 2009 that I was able to be more prepared this time.
So say if you read that in a book, say if before that actually happened to you, but you read about stories about, the reserves, do you think you would have put it into practice?
Probably not. I'd love to say I would, but no, probably not. I think I'll tell you what it boils down to, and a lot of I say it quite a bit these days and it's an age thing. Not age in the sense of the number of rings you have in your tree, but age as in experience-wise. I think that's the biggest driver. And instincts get stronger as well. I think your instincts get stronger and stronger. So I probably... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, then, do you feel then, once you've got that experiential learning, do you feel then your ability to bounce back is greater and take more risks?
Yeah, I think what it is, it's a double-edged sword, really. I think part of you is more wary, because it's almost like you become aware that bad things, and I use bad in inverted commas, bad things can happen. And I think when you're younger,
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're younger, and again, generalizing massively, but I think when you're younger, that whole mindset of it won't happen to me tends to be true because it hasn't.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate in that most, nothing really tough, what you might call tough, really happened to me for a long time in my younger years. And then one or two things happened in life as it does.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that was the wake up call that said to me, bad things do happen. So in answer to your question about reading the book, if I'd read the book in my, shall we say, I don't know, early 30s or late 20s, probably not. But if I'd read the book when I was in my, I don't know, say early 40s or mid 40s, I might have done something about it, because I wouldn't be thinking that kind of crap happens to other people.
Yeah.
And there's so many examples of it, even in something like, I don't know, drink driving. Some people will drive around, drink driving. I'll be fine. It'll never happen to me. I'll not get stopped. I can deal with it. And then all of a sudden something happens, drop your phone, pick it up, and you've rammed into a wall. You've hurt somebody. God forbid you've even killed somebody or whatever. All of a sudden then there's a realization that it can happen to me.
Yeah, interesting one, that. But what I've tried to do, I mean, we share similarities in that as well. I mean, my dad, when I was growing up, always used to say, you always learn the hard way. So maybe there was a trait in me that was more about seeking the adventure, learning as I go along. He was trying to say, I've been down this road before, I can show you all the shortcuts, and it's all right, don't go down that alley, and you come out of the alley with all your shirt torn. And you know what I mean? But it's like, I wanted to experience it for myself. And he also used to say to me, my dad, experience is the best teacher. But I think as a dad, he was trying to be protective and go, listen, son, I've been down that road. You don't want to go down. Just trust me. And I was like, well, I just want to have a little look down. You know what I mean? And that's followed me throughout my life. But what I've been able to do, I'm lucky that I got into things like self-improvement or personal development or coaching quite earlier on. So say if I met you and we were having a coffee, wherever, I would maybe ask you a few questions around that and say, all right, what did you learn when this happened? And depends who it is. I might even turn around and say, oh, you'd be really good. You'd be a really good person for me to maybe tap on for some advice from time to time. Or sometimes I have mentioned it to people, saying for somebody who could act as my mentor, which I've had, across, and I still have people now. So that's really good then, because they can do the self-checking for you, they can do accountability checking for you, and all the rest of it. Ultimately, it's you and what you interpret that information and how you then put that into action.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm thinking about, how on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Jeremy Clarkson, when he's chosen as the lifeline, he'll say, right, this is what I think. And then he'll explain what he thinks. He'll play and then he'll say, but obviously it's up to you. You've got to make the decision. And he says at the end of it again, that's what I think. And that's probably what I tend to do with a lot of clients. But I am not good. I am not good. Arguably, I'm not a very good coach.
Right.
I'm a much, much better consultant.
Yeah.
And I'm a much better mentor, because I struggle with that whole thing of don't give them the answers.
Yeah, I get you.
And I know I'm self-aware of it. I'm self-aware of it, because they'll say, oh, I've got this problem and I'm thinking about this. So of course, coaching should be about get them to come up with the answers themselves. And I'll think that's what I need to do. And then I'll find myself saying, well, I had this situation myself actually 5 years ago, and this is how I handled it. But I try and negate it a little bit by saying, anyway, that's what I would do looking through my lens, but you've got to make your own mind up.
Yeah. Sometimes what you can do then, if you ever wanted to bring other stuff in, but keep to what you've learned, which, to be honest with you, it's really good that you've recognized that within yourself, and then you can develop your consultancy skills and your mentoring skills even further. Well, if you tell stories is a good one. And that way, I always get the thing sometimes, if it's going to be one of them, these kind of action gangster films where there's a gangster and you walk in and he goes, right, what it is, son? And he tells you a story. I think I watched loads of them until I watched one of them, which was a bit of a comic-y one. And then the person did this little story and went, yeah, well, what am I supposed to do with that? Get to the point. I thought, great, someone's finally made a movie where they've kind of addressed that bit. But yeah, storytelling is quite good, which you'll be good at, obviously. But there is certain situations, if I just give you an analogy, that if something's on fire and there's a beam that's about to come crashing down, we shouldn't be really asking, I wonder what we should do in this situation. What would you do in this situation? It's like critical. You can hear it. It's creaking. You know what I mean? At that time, you'd need a consultancy thing to say, listen, out. So it depends where it is and how I have developed more of a hybrid style. I suppose the word hybrid is where we are at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
I will predominantly go to my roots as a coach, but every now and again, I'll do the whole thing, you know, I've got a suggestion, whatever. But sometimes it's easier for me just to point something out, maybe like a consultant would do. But I use my intuition a lot as well. So sometimes if you turn around to me and said, yeah, I get that, Lateef, but what would you do? Sometimes I get a gut feeling, not to mess them about, but I get a gut feeling thinking, don't give them the answer. So I just go, and I'll give them a story, and I can see sometimes a bit of frustration there, but I don't know, I'm following my gut feeling, and when I haven't followed my gut feeling, it's always turned out a little bit, it's not turned out so good. So whether that's in coaching, whether I've got lost somewhere in the middle of the, you know, wherever, some people call it intuitive coaching. Yeah. So yeah, if it's going to get to a point where I think the rapport's going to break, or for some reason they're going to go, like, you're just being a bit of an idiot now, aren't you, Lateef? You know, I've asked you 15 times now. If it gets to a point, a few times, and I'll go, I'll tell you what then, Phil, if it was me, this is what I would do in your position, and I would do it that way around.
Yeah, that does make absolute sense. I think the approach that I tend to take is, what does the customer think? Yeah. At any point in the journey, is the customer getting the value, and is the customer satisfied and happy? And for me personally, all roads lead back to that.
Yeah.
Because of what I'm looking for, I mean, everything that we do at Geeky Group is, I have a guarantee that if you're not happy, you don't pay. And people think I'm crazy, but it works because you remove that barrier. Yeah. And the truth is, yes, once or twice people have taken the P. But I've been doing this quite a long time, and only once or twice have people taken the P. Yeah. And I just want them to be satisfied and happy. So, you know, I will guarantee that. So at the end of the day, if they're happy and contented, one, they'll give me a good testimonial, which of course is always very useful, and we can add those to LinkedIn, and we can add them to our website, and we can add them to if we do put in for a piece of work, we can put them at the bottom or whatever. And secondly, in this scenario, as I've described it, you get paid. So for me, it's really all about the testimonial and are they happy to pay? Yeah. If I tick those boxes, and it might seem very simplistic, mate, to be honest, but if I tick those boxes, then for me, I've done a decent job. But I've also learned over the years that, and it's a weird thing, this, isn't it, is that some people, you just go like, with who you're talking to or you're working with, you just go like that. It's almost instant. Yeah. And other people, you go like that. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how nice you are, you feel as if, you know, they just don't, they're just not into the way you approach it. Maybe they don't like your accent. Maybe they don't like your bald head. Doesn't matter, whatever it is. It's just kind of not working. Yeah. And I think that's important as well, is to recognize that as quickly as possible, because it can be quite painful when you get that level of clashing. Yeah, absolutely. I tried to do some research a little while ago about that intuition. Is that based on lots and lots of encounters of experience that's guiding you, or is it just your intuition? Well, you know, how does it work out? But I think whichever way it works out, my conclusion for me that I've always had it basically, and it was maybe less of the experience and more of just a gut feeling. But either way, even for example, when you get a message on, say, I don't know, Instagram, or mainly for me, it's LinkedIn. It seems to be like it's an inquiry. That's where my stuff happens. And I just get a feeling one way or the other. And that will kind of dictate how I respond.
And the ones where I've not really had too much of an overwhelming feeling, we don't end up working together. Now, somebody can argue that's because you've created that situation, Lateef, now, or whatever. But I don't know. It's kind of, I've limited myself now of how many of those experiences I want, which is not many, and it hardly happens, where I'm going to have people that either waste my time or, like you said, taking the mic or whatever. It's kind of, I'd rather have less clients that get what I do, and then they're happy, I'm happy, they go and tell everybody else because the people notice the changes. As the organization grows, you know what I mean? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to see who they call back in again. So you kind of got all these organizations really have got your name on the wall, sort of thing. You know, who do we call? Call him. Did a great job with X, Y, and Z last time. Did a great job with me. Oh, I'm thinking of setting up another business. You know what I mean? I'm thinking of selling this business. So thought I'd just give you a quick call. And it's them having the confidence to do that as well, because we got on so well that we can just pick up the phone up and have a chat. And then before you know it, it opens up a whole new project. So happy days.
It's what you referred to earlier, and I know you're really big on it, and you're very good at it, to be fair, as well. It's the relationship building stuff. And of course, you have to be, we both know this, you have to be patient with relationships. You have to build relatively slowly. Depends obviously on the people, but if you're too in people's faces, then they can be a bit like, whoa, you know, especially if you're a bit more extrovert or whatever. But you have to be patient and build a relationship. And that, I think, a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, struggle with, apart from any other reason than they've got they've got cash flows often a challenge or an issue. They've got sales targets to meet. If they're a new business, maybe they've given themselves 6 months to get it going before their partner's going to demand that they go out and get a real job. So that it's almost like they're desperate. And unfortunately, that's nothing turns you off more than people who come across as desperate.
It's just when you're speaking there, it just reminded me of somebody. And the thing is, he's called a nod and a smile. This is before lockdown, and it was somebody that I used to see at a few events, and you know, we're connected on LinkedIn, but when I used to see them, they always used to have quite a serious face on them, and I did try to trying to kind of get to know them a little bit, but I think, you know, in my head I thought either they're not really used to networking or they've had a long day, but it seemed to be like that with quite a few people. But I just, you know, I was myself, but something told me that don't be your normal Lateef and going, hey, how you doing? All this kind of stuff. So it was literally, I see him around, not on a smile. And then one of the days, I don't know how it happened, but we ended up somewhere like to one side of the room, and that person just opened up. And previous to that, all the little bits of communication we'd had, that little side of the room was probably like 2 hours worth of whatever than all the other times we've met. Anyway, this person eventually got to work with me. I worked with them, and I don't know, something just told me, you know, like terms of, you know, what got you to sort of work with me? What's brought you to work with me besides the obvious? You know, it's this thing and that. They just sat back and he went, nod and a smile. I said, what do you mean, nod and a smile? He said, well, you respected my boundary. Obviously, I wasn't there was lots of other things going on with this person, with the business and all sorts of things. But I just felt, Lateef, that you respected where I was at that time. Rather, I seen you with other people, and, you know, in them days, there were like hugs everywhere, you know what I mean? But anyway, he said, I thought if this guy comes on, he's going to be too much full on for me, this fella. And he went, for some reason, I said, I don't know. I just had a feeling to just respect you for who you were and everything, but just to kind of leave you alone, essentially. I had a feeling not to kind of put the Lateef charm on or whatever, but I just be myself around you. And he went, no, that really did it for me, because if you would have kind of tried to be too friendly with me, where I was in my life, with my mindset and everything, it would have turned me off. You would have been a pain in the backside. I would have seen you as a pain in the backside sort of thing. So it stuck with me, that. And then through, especially, like, I'll give you an example. When I was doing coaching years ago, we were doing telephone coaching, just booking clients in, but just on the phone. And people were saying, well, that's not going to work, is it, Lateef? How do you do that? You'd need to see them, wouldn't you? I went, you'll be surprised when you get somebody on the phone, you can hear everything, right? You can hear literally when they take a sip of something and how it kind of goes down, and if it gets stuck even, and then you can hear somebody talking to you, but you can hear the kind of little tapping of keyboards, and you think that's them completely oblivious, like they're talking to me, completely oblivious. And then there's the other ones that try to do it a little bit more delicately. So it's like I'll hit the keys, and you can pick it all up, only because now, because I'm not focused on the visual side, I've gone into order, and I have been known to close my eyes completely when I'm speaking to somebody on the phone, etc., etc. So yeah, it's an amazing thing. But the nod and a smile. I didn't do the nod, wink, and smile. I just give them the nod and a smile.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And some of the very best leaders that I've ever come across over the years, they are those people who have the ability to slightly change their approach to individuals based on the individual. Yeah. So I've heard it said of the very best football managers in the same way. Yeah. You know, they're able to talk like in a pally, friendly, shall we say, slightly more extrovert way with those that are like that. Yeah. But they're able to talk to the more introvert types, and they're able to understand what makes them tick, even to the point where understanding what's important to them. Yeah. So, you know, if they're big on family, you'll ask them, "How's your family?" "Oh, it was your brother's wedding the other day. How did it go?" Yeah. You know, if they're massive into, they're not really that bothered about family, and they're massive into rowing. You know, you understand a bit about you've not saying you study rowing in any great detail, but you kind of know enough about it. You know, in the days of Google, you can learn anything in 5 minutes, and you just have a kind of a little bit of an understanding of it. Yeah. And I think that's right. Do you know something that I learned though on my travels, Lateef, was, you know, like your good self, I do talks at events, or I did before, whatever. Yeah. Something I learned years and years ago is I used to look at people sometimes in the audience, and I'd see somebody and I'd think, God, this is not resonating with them. And it was just what you said. You just said exactly that a minute ago when you said the look on the face. But what it taught me was a lot of times the same person who was looking like that would come up to me and say, "I love that. Yeah. It really." And I said, and some people who I took a bit of a punt on, I'd say, "To be honest, I thought you just weren't really into it." And they would say, "Yeah, it's because I was concentrating so much and I was reflecting back as to how this would work back in my office or back in my business, or what my assistant manager would think of it, or how I could utilize you in other ways. I was focused and concentrated on what you were saying, which meant I wasn't particularly all bright and smiley." And that happened a lot. So it just goes to show you, you know, don't judge a book by its cover and all those things. And that taught me exactly that, Lateef. Yeah,
that's really interesting, because we used to work together with this guy who was a consultant, but he's far superior than, you know, so many years. He was like in his 62, 63, I think he was. And I must have been about half that age. And he'd just done a session on marketing or something. And I went, "Oh, you know, how did it go? Yeah, I think these lot liked it. This, you know, him over there. I bet you he couldn't wait to get out." I said, "What was he doing?" He said, "Oh, he had his hands folded. Right? He kept on looking out the window. And he kept on going, he kept on doing that." Right? I went, "Right, that's interesting." Now, this fellow is like MBA trained, consultant, works around the world, worked for some of the famous companies and what have you. But the only insight I had is somebody that I knew told me about this particular person, and in terms of how they learn, they have some, you know, how they learn basically. I think they had, I don't know if they were, I can't remember what they said, but they basically said, this particular person, when you deliver a session, just be aware that if they do start looking out the window, crossing their hands and everything, it's not because they're bored and everything you're saying is like naff. They're probably at that pinnacle point of taking it all in, right? So it's only because I said, right, so when they told me what this person was doing, I said, "You know what? Well done you." "What do you mean, well done me?" He said, "So to explain this to them." But funny enough, is when I was doing the session, I did another session on business modeling or something. But whatever I was doing it on, it was sat at the back of the room, and they were just doing that. But because I'd had the insight of somebody else, I was kind of half looking at it. But even with the insight, I was kind of half observing the impact of other people. Because other people were looking around going, this is great, this, what are you doing sat there doing that? Do you not like it? Obviously, they don't know. I couldn't say anything. But yeah, you're right. Never judge a book by its cover, because when I've done public speaking, again, there's been people in the audience who you thought, in the early days, I used to think, right, this just clearly they're not going to get it, or clearly they want to be out of here. And they're the ones that'll follow you up to the thing and go, yeah, etc. etc. It was really good, that, and do you know such a body, and they become your best mates basically. So very interesting. You've raised that, Phil.
Yeah, and it's also that, again, cliche as it might be, it's so true. You just can't please all the people all the time. And I always talk about it at the start of any session I do, particularly with digital media. I always start by saying there'll be some of the stuff that I talk about that may be too advanced for some of you, and some of what I talk about will be too basic for some of you. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have your little basket with a few things in it to take away and a few things you've left on the shelf, a bit like the supermarket analogy. And that's the reason, because it's true. You're going to have people in the audience that are still trying to figure out where the on button is on their iPhone, right the way through to some people who are doing Instagram Live, or doing live streams on LinkedIn, and everything in between. So you're not going to please all the people all the time. And then, of course, you've got other things where you'll have people, if you're talking about some of the stuff you've been talking about resilience or emotional intelligence, more stuff, you'll get some people who are very practical, direct, just cut the crap and give me the answers I need. And you'll get others that are more into the discussion and the emotional intelligence elements of it, and everything again in between. So you can't please all, no matter what you're talking about, you can't really please all the people all the time. And I just always had a view that said, if I got a room of 20 people and I get one didn't really get anything out of it, wasn't really my thing, whatever, I get somebody else who says, it was okay, it was all right, and then everybody else is going, loved it, that's a win. And in the early days of doing it, one person saying didn't really get that, or he was trying to be too funny. I got one from somebody once. I think he thought it was John Bishop was one. John. And I was just trying to bring some humor into it. That was all. I wasn't cracking jokes every 10 minutes. I was just having a little bit of being myself, as they say. And one person said, I thought he was trying to be like John Bishop at one point, trying to be a comedian. But now, as I say, I just kind of, it's just like par for the course, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny. You just reminded me of something else where if you have an MD, if you have somebody quite senior, the business owner or whatever, and if they turn around to you at that stage and say, just give it to me straight, then you're not going to faff around and start saying, well, I wonder what you think. Right? It kind of comes with, but in the early days of my coaching, I probably would have thought, right, I've been kind of trained to avoid this. I can't really say, and it would cause more problems, and you'd kind of learn by your mistakes. But I remember there was somebody on The Apprentice, Lord Sugar, was saying something like, will you stop? I think we're getting really frustrated because the person kept on asking, basically, somebody, if he said something, they'd ask a question back. He won't answer. In his head, he thought they weren't giving him a straight answer. And then in the middle of it, he goes, oh, there, you do it again. You've done it again. He was rollicking them for that. So it's quite interesting.
One of the things I do now, and you just got me thinking about the things that I just do as part of the way I do it. It's become just my kind of pattern, if you like. And one of the things I always do at the start of any session, anybody I work with, I always say that I'm not the person who's going to tell you what I think you want to hear. If you want somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear, I'm not your guy. Because I'm not. I'm not. If you want me to be all warm and fluffy, I am warm and fluffy when it's appropriate to be warm and fluffy. But if you've told me 4 times that you're going to do X, and then on the 5th session, I say, well, how have you got on? And you're bullshitting me with excuses. I'm going to say, with the greatest respect, John, you're bullshitting me with excuses.
Yeah.
And if you can accept that, and that's the sort of thing you feel you need, I'm your man.
Yeah.
But I always set that context up front, because I think it's important, because then if they say, you know, you're a bit direct, or, you know, I didn't think you'd tell me off for that, you know, I'd say, well, I did say at the start that's, and it's not happened very often, because if you set context and you know what to expect, then there's no surprises.
Yeah. You're right, absolutely right. And I think some of that, no matter what you try to do, whether it's verbal, so you know, once you start working with something at the beginning, you'll probably state how you work and what's expected, what you're going to give as a coach or whatever, and there may be some supplementary information you might send for them to read or watch, even if it's through a video. But then after that word accountability is going to be put into practice. And then some people struggle with that because they think, oh, well, you know, you won't remember that. You won't remember this. Because I'm not really one nowadays for writing copious notes, you know. But either way, every now and again, somebody gets a little bit surprised because you can see it a mile off when they're going to hit you with this. And then, all right, what about that then? And it's basically one excuse. It's like lying, you know, one little lie leads to another. I'm not saying they're really disingenuous, but what I'm trying to say is they're not really being open with you to say, I really didn't get that done because I couldn't be asked. There was no other reason, Lateef, really.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was out of my comfort zone too much. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. They were just trying to give you excuses, and they'd be better off just saying, listen, I didn't do it because I didn't want to do it. I thought it was a good idea at the time. I didn't want to do it, or I couldn't be asked. It was like 9 o'clock, and this happened and that happened, which is fine. And we can do something about that, whether just to leave it and just carry on, or whether you say, well, it wasn't me that said it. It was you that said it, right? You know, 2 weeks ago when we met. So is that, so based on your overall goal, is that still something that's relevant then? Because you said it, but I didn't say it. And every now and, you know, like when you say that kind of, I can be fluffy and all this lot, well, I like to do the Columbo type approach, you see. So it looks like, you know, it's kind of this way, that way. And then when Columbo needs to, it can be very direct and it can be very assertive. And you
do know anybody watching this under 30s going, what the hell, who the hell's Columbo?
Yeah, you'll have to watch it. I did a post on LinkedIn all about the Columbo and the kind of Columbo technique, what he does, what he gets up to, and how it can be related to business. But yeah, they'll all have to. It's on 5 USA most Sundays. Well, I get in trouble now.
Probably find him on YouTube, I'd imagine. These days.
He's on YouTube, but I tend to, like I said, just record it. But what I'm trying to say in there is sometimes you can use it as a strategy to lure people in if you needed to. Not to set them up, but just to allow them a little bit more of transparency if it needed it. And the second thing is an accountability, because what you're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, and somebody else is trying to do is help that client. Are they happy all the way through? Now, the thing is, they may feel, it's like me going to the gym, for example. You're my personal trainer. I've told you what I want to achieve, whatever it is. And then you probably know that I've been to the fish and chip shop twice this week. And I'm going to stop blagging your head now. That's sort of not really the case. Or, well, the thing was, we were out anywhere. We couldn't see anywhere, nothing else anywhere. And, you know, we talked the week before about pre-packing food and having your meals all prepped. And that's all gone out the window just because I like a good, you know, Savoy and chips or whatever, right? Yeah. Now, the more I dig myself deeper, some people might go, well, if I just do this, he'll just ease off. And I sometimes, like I said, I follow my intuition. I think, right, I'm not letting him off the hook now. And even if they try to change the subject, I kind of nicely, very nicely, but I won't let them off the hook. Not because it's a thing around hierarchy or anything like that. It's just about saying, do you realise you going to the chippy twice, what it's done for you? Because what did you say you felt like the next day? You know, your run wasn't the same, or your lifting wasn't the same, or whatever. How that's increased your calorific take, everything. So I'm trying to explain to them, look, I'm not saying or doing this because I hate you. I'm saying or doing this to kind of help you look at it kind of more in a more clear way is probably the best way to explain it.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, mate. That, as always, an hour and 10 flipping minutes, and we've only just scratched the surface. That, as always, as I knew it would be. But there's, like I said, my instincts are stronger now than they've ever been, and it's no different with you in a very good way. So, thanks for joining me today, Lateef. I really appreciate it. A great chat, and given me some food for thought as well. As always, I always get good value out of it for myself. Thanks for joining me today, and I will definitely see you out on the road, I think, as Mad Max once possibly said, and it'll be an absolute joy to see you again in person. And I guess my suggestion is we go for elbows so there's no awkwardness.
Nice easy ones.
Go for the elbows. Okay then, mate, thanks very much indeed for joining me, and I'll see you very soon. Thanks, Lateef.
See you later, mate. See you. Bye bye.